promoted teams in the Premier League. 3 of them. First up, Sunderland. They finished 4th in the championship last season on 76 points. They won in the playoff, 21 wins, 13 draws, 12 losses. Not a great record entering the Premier League, but they've spent the 7th most of any of the Premier League teams in the summer transfer window. That means Granit Xhaka is in the team. That means Enzo Laffi got a new deal. He was on loan. He signed permanently this summer. They added a Dinger from Brighton. They just got Mark Guy from Chelsea. They've added Siddiqui in the midfield, Habib Diarra. They've added a few players. They added a new goalkeeper, Robin Reifs. They got Reinildo from Atletico Madrid as a center back. They've added pieces pretty much all across the pitch. But if you look a little more into their signings here, I think if they entered the season with this roster, they're minus 290 to be relegated. They are the favorite to finish last in the table. I think that's going to come to fruition. I don't think Granit Xhaka is going to be the end all here just because he's experienced. He's been in the Premier League before. He's past his prime. I'm not sure that's going to be the answer. And unless they add another piece or two to the back line, I just don't think they have the defense here to compete in the Premier League. They're already entering the season with a couple of injuries. Injuries or not, they have all the same guys from last season. But, I mean, you look at what happened last season. Okay, 58 goals scored, 44 against. Pretty mediocre numbers across the pitch, including defensively, 44 goals allowed compared to Leeds, allowed 30 goals. Burnley allowed 16 goals. Even Sheffield United allowed 36 goals. So even their defense last season wasn't that great. And they didn't really add that many players this summer, at least yet. Maybe they're going to add some more pieces as we get going in August. But even then, how much is that going to help them? We'll see what those guys can do. I mean, Reinildo is more of a bench player coming over from Atletico Madrid. He's probably going to be asked to start a decent amount. Huggins was injured, has been injured. He may be starting game week 1 for them because of the other injuries. Churkin, their left back, the regular left back, is going to be out to open the season. So I'm just kind of wondering what their defense is going to look like. And their midfield will be fine. I think their midfield will be fine. They have Dan Neal in there. He almost played every minute last season in the championship. He turns into more of a bench player now with Granit Xhaka there. They added Habib Diarra, Siddiqui. We'll see how much those guys can play. Chris Rigg, another kind of up and coming. They got a lot of young players in this squad. What are the minutes going to shape out to be? Enzo Laffi, he can play kind of a little bit all over the place on the wing, centrally, up top. But Xhaka, Laffi, probably going to be their 2 heaviest minutes players, not including the defense. And then offensively, are they going to have enough? They've added pieces. Mark Guy, okay, they have just a lot of young guys here up front. Mayenda, Adingra, I figured probably going to be the main guy on the wing coming over from Brighton. We've kind of seen what he's been able to do at Brighton on a better team. What's he going to be doing in the Sunderland team with a bigger load on his shoulders here? And how are these young forwards going to get going? Patrick Roberts, I haven't mentioned him. Talby, another guy. Isidore. They have a lot of young guys in the attack, a lot of improving guys in the attack. So you got questions offensively. Maybe the midfield's fine, but I think there's questions defensively. I think that's not a great recipe. Even though they're spending a bunch, I'm not sure they have a best recipe for success in the Premier League. Up next is Burnley. They finished level with Leeds United last season on 100 points. Yeah, 24 more points than a fellow promoted team, Sunderland, last season. Of course, 16 goals allowed. They had the clean sheet streak. That was pretty much going to the second half of the season. They did score 69 goals as well, which is 11 more than Sunderland. You look at what they did last season, just maybe not control matches, but they didn't allow goals. They only lost 2 games. How is that going to turn into in the Premier League? What's that going to look like? I think they might actually have the best chance to stay up of the promoted teams just because of the defense, just because of the way they want to play under Scott Parker. I don't think it's going to be run and gun. Like, I kind of feel like these Sunderland matches are going to get kind of wild. I don't think the Burnley matches are going to get wild. I think Burnley's kind of going with this Nottingham Forest style. okay, let's sit back. Let's not allow great opportunities. We'll let teams shoot from 20, 30 yards out, and then we'll go on the counter and see what happens. Do they have the same attack as Nottingham Forest? No, they don't. Do they have the same midfield? Not really. But I think let's call it a C version of Nottingham Forest, B version of Nottingham Forest. And I think that might be enough to actually stay up. It may end up depending on what happens with their attack, if they can actually score. Do they have a Chris Wood in their team who can score every other game, kind of thing? But going through the roster, of course, no more Trafford at goalkeeper. Dubravka seems like his experience, he's probably going to win the job initially. And then they also have a younger Max Weiss, who is going to be more of the goalkeeper of the future, it seems like. Defensively, I kind of like what they did. I like a little more what they did in the transfer window than Sunderland. They're focusing a little more on their defense. They're, instead of mixing and matching an attack, kind of throwing things at the wall, it's like, okay, let's get our defense settled and let's work into what we can do here. Kyle Walker, again, similar to Grant Xhaka's best years are behind him, but he's going to provide experience on the back line. He's going to be maybe 50-50 role with Connor Roberts. We'll see how much Kyle Walker can play this season. They added Hartman. They're getting plenty of guys back from injury. They added Tonzebe as well. Jordan Baugh, a guy who's basically been out for a couple of years. We'll see if he can put in minutes, a former starting center back in the Premier League. So they have the pieces. That I think that they also kept Maxime Esteve, which I think is pretty relevant as well. Ekdal also back from his loan. So I think they have a lot of pieces on their back line that they can use on, I think, unlike Sunderland. I think that defense is going to come in big. They recently added Ugochukwu from Chelsea. He has Premier League experience. I think just having an experienced defensive midfielder is going to help a bunch. I know Josh Cullen has been around, but they don't have Josh Brownhill in the midfield anymore. And I think Ugochukwu is going to help. In terms of that, Hannibal, a little more forward. Josh Laurent, now going to be a bench option with Ugochukwu there. And then Aaron Ramsey, also just a guy who's been around here and there, battling injuries, getting him healthy. Wonder what he can do in this squad, the brother of Jacob Ramsey. And offensively, I think is where the problems are probably going to lie, because there just isn't a lot. One of their bigger signings this summer was Jacob Brun-Larsen, which, okay, he's still a guy who can't get consistent starts in Bundesliga. They're going to add Armando Broja as well. Again, if that's your top forward signing, then, you know, the attack is probably going to be bottom three in the league. It wasn't elite in the championship, and now it looks kind of similar. They still have Ashley Barnes signed another deal. If you need Ashley Barnes to play some this season, then tough times ahead, I guess you could say. But Jaden Anthony, he's had some really good championship seasons. Former Bournemouth guy Marcus Edwards joined up in January. We'll see if Zion Fleming can have any kind of role. And then, of course, the youngsters, Koleosho and Foster, who we saw a couple of years ago with Burnley. But I think they have a better chance than the other two just because of their defense. But they are minus 280 to be relegated. So that'd be something to look at. Finally, Leeds United, also 100 points last season in the championship, 29 wins, 13 draws, 4 losses. Unlike Burnley, a little more scoring. They were pretty good defensively as well, 30 goals allowed, but they did score 95 goals. They almost scored 100 goals from 46 matches, which is just something that doesn't really happen too often, if ever, in the championship. But their squad, we know a lot of their guys. This is a team that was been in the Premier League recently, so we know a lot of their guys. But they also added some pieces similar to Burnley. Do they have enough offensively in the Premier League? I'm not entirely sure, but looking at goalkeepers, so they added Lucas Perry, who's going to be the starter over Ilan Meslier. So maybe a slight upgrade, we could say. Well, we haven't seen what happens yet, but maybe a slight upgrade at goalkeeper, because Meslier has been in there and he's had his moments in the Premier League. But defensively, I think there's kind of might be an issue here at left back. They added Gabriel Gudmundsson to go with Sam Bieram. I'm not entirely sure that's going to be the answer there at left back, and they're not going to add anyone else. So that might be one of their bigger problems. They added some center backs, Bornau, Jakob Bijal. They got Jaden Bogle. Joe Rodin played almost every game last season. Pascal Strike and Ethan Ampadu can play center back and play defensive mid. So they got guys who can play a few positions. And then moving up the pitch a little bit, Longstaff, Anton Stach, and then Tanaka. They have a pretty deep midfield. Even if injuries occur, they have a pretty deep midfield, mostly defensive midfielders. But I think, as I was saying with Burnley, it's better to have defensive players, I think, than offensive players if you want to stay up in the Premier League. But the question I think here for Leeds will be, how are they going to be scoring compared to last season? 95 goals in the championship last season. And then Aronson, 9 goals, 2 assists last season. And can he be a starter, consistent starter in the Premier League? I'm not entirely sure on that. 2 assists last season when they had 95 goals and he was starting in that central attacking role. Not a great number, and 9 goals, okay. If his numbers, if he's similar to what they were last season, if he can't get 10 goal contributions from that role, I do have questions about that. And what is Jack Harrison's role going to be after going on loan at Everton the last couple seasons? Not really sure. He hasn't been playing the preseason because he hasn't been healthy. So we'll see what happens with that role. And then we have the other guys, Joel Perreault. We don't know what's going to happen with the number 9 role. It still seems like they're going to add someone, but it hasn't happened yet. That's been kind of the talk for the entire summer, really, because Patrick Bamford isn't going to be an option anymore. They added Lucas Nemeka from the Bundesliga, and that's not really a full-time answer. He's another guy who's not a full-time starter in the Bundesliga, so he's not going to be a full-time starter in the Premier League. Joel Perreault was their guy last season. Can he turn it into the Premier League? Remains to be seen. And then the guys we know about, Daniel James and Wilfried Gnonto, both guys coming off the wing. Is that going to be enough in the Premier League for Leeds? I'm not entirely sure. I'd probably rate the Burnley defense a little better, but Leeds have a lot of experience, a lot of Premier League experience. They added more experience. I think Leeds have a pretty good squad. They are plus 190 to be relegated, so they are, according to the odds, most likely to not be relegated of the promoted teams. But I think just compared to with how these teams played last season, I still give the edge a little bit to Burnley just because of the new additions in the transfer window and just the way that they want to play compared to Leeds. I just think playing more defensive, playing safer, playing for off the counter instead of, opening things up as a promoted team doesn't get you as many positive results. So those are my thoughts on the 3 promoted teams. I'll rank them right here. I'll go Burnley, Leeds United, and Sunderland. That's how I'll rank the 3 promoted